All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Good morning, all from Washington, D.C. Oh my gosh, I can smell the military-industrial complex from here. It is so terrific. I will tell you, Washington. Oh, the scent of lobbyists in the morning. It is terrific. How is everyone? It is great to have you in my home. This is the home I grew up in. My dad is in bad shape, but he's fighting a good fight, and it's so good to see him and get an opportunity to see him, and it's great to. He's a big supporter, no kidding, of this show. So there's a certain special quality to continuing to do the show, even as I visit my dad during some choppy water. Kim is here. Albert is here. And we have a really great show today. Some major announcements and special guest, of course, coming up right away. And then a second special guest, bottom of the hour, to talk about politics, the addition of Nikki Haley to the presidential race. Also touch on Ukraine, documents, Biden, his legal struggles, and now my favorite part of this song. But I don't want to put it off any. First of all, thank you for welcoming us. One of you who is on Twitter can get an automatic retweet because none of us ever remember to tweet the fact that the show is on the air. Still, thousands come here. It's an amazing thing when you think about what we're overcoming. But one of you can hit Twitter with a link to the show now, and we will retweet. Albert will retweet it, and then I'll retweet it when I get an opportunity. So somebody let the Twitterverse know that we're on the air. Okay, much to do. I want to start in the celestial plane. And Albert, if you will sting me, I will welcome our first guest.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I can't believe we've got this guy. I mean, he's really the guy. Astronomer, researcher, author, and popularizer, if that's a word, of science. It's great to have such a terrific ambassador for science. I feel as though that's something that science needs more than ever. Please welcome, from the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, Edwin Krupp, everybody. Come on. Ed Krupp, this is so cool to have you on our show.
Thanks an awful lot. It's fun to see you, and if I could retweet, I would, but it's all.
You are doing all you need to do, all right? We have others to retweet. Look, first of all, any excuse to have you on, because I just think your takes on the universe, on the cosmos and its beginnings, where we've come from, it's a magical world, science, and you bring that all to life and have for years. But the excuse that I use today is this Green Comet. Apparently, it's coming very close to Earth. Maybe you can put that in perspective and maybe tell us when it will hit Earth.
The latter part's going to be tough, but the comet makes its closest approach to Earth on Groundhog Day. Actually, that's just February 2nd, and it will be about 26 million miles away when it makes that so-called close approach. That's not really very close. The sun is about 93 million miles away. So this is a third of that distance, perhaps less than the planet Venus, say, is from us, but it's not really close. It's been passing through our skies, certainly for the last month or so with amateur astronomers in particular, trying to have a look at it, but it's very, very faint. So this is a comet with a great press agent, but not a particularly high profile when it comes to onstage performance.
So you think there's a little more being made of this than, why is it called the Green Comet?
Yeah, that's actually pretty entertaining. because most comets actually do emit green light. And this green light comes from carbon atoms, essentially dirt. If you think about what a comet really is, in the middle of that sort of glowing stream of light with this long tail extending, there's a tiny mountain of ice and dirt, or carbon or coal or whatever you want to mix it up as. And that just stays frozen most of the time the comet is out in the solar system, because it's not very close to the sun. But when it starts coming in closer into the inner solar system, it starts evaporating that material, or really it's not even evaporating, it just kind of takes off from it. And that's how the tail develops. Well, that heating causes this one molecule of carbon, it's two atoms put together, to split. And when they split, that's the ultraviolet light that causes them to split. And then they recombine again because they're not happy being split. And that releases this green light that can be recorded on photographs. If you went out to look at it, and you could really see it anyway, it wouldn't look green to your eye, but it will in these pictures.
Speaking of going out to see it, can you?
Well, I've tried 3 times from my backyard in Los Angeles, but I think it's fair to complain about Los Angeles rather than the comet in that case. The lights of our cities are really way too bright for observing the sky. But the comet is very faint, and I've used binoculars and been unable to see it. Now, some of the staff at Griffith Observatory have gone out to darker locations with telescopes, and they have seen it and photographed it. But I think most of the estimates right now from the people that I know are saying it's really not quite as bright as it's been made out to be.
How many nights do you have? And I assume, I mean, that's the time to see it at night, I would think. How many nights do you have to try to see this thing, if you could get to a location that, because also around the Bay Area and also around Los Angeles and parts of California where people are watching us from all over, there are opportunities to connect on with I'm sorry, something's happening here. It distracted me for a second. There are opportunities to see or potentially see this from areas that are not with the urban light pollution that you're talking about.
Yeah,
how many nights?
That's a perfectly good point. And I think it's fair to say that over the next 2 weeks, you have a shot at it. But I'm still pretty convinced that you need a telescope as well. It doesn't mean a giant telescope, but this is an amateur astronomer's comet. It's not really everybody's comet because it is so faint.
I heard that, you see these comets that come around every year, and this one apparently is pretty rare. What was it, 50,000 years or?
Yeah, the orbit for this has been calculated. This is something astronomers are really good at now. You watch it for a few weeks and you get the information on how it's moving, and then you can calculate what it does. And this orbit it's sort of like a great big long hot dog in shape. It extends from the sun way out beyond Pluto, thousands of times the distance of Pluto. And so it comes in and then goes out again. And that complete circuit, as you said, is about 50,000 years. Now compare that with something like Halley's Comet, which comes around every 76 years. And that seems like a long time. So 50,000 is really a long time. There are a few comets that go around the sun much more quickly in a matter of few years. Those short period comets are really, in a sense, captured. They've had their orbits altered, and so they're sort of staying closer to the sun than most of these comets do.
Somebody says, Lori says, Hale-Bopp had a blue tail. Got some great pics of it from Mojave Desert way back in '98, more or less. She's not sure if that was the year, but yeah. Hale-Bopp was also like this, Dr. Krupp. That was very well advertised, and that did pay off, didn't it?
It did. It was one of the greats. I could even see it from Griffith Observatory, spectacular. And then when I went out of town, it was huge. And of course, we showed Hale-Bopp at Griffith Observatory through a telescope to more people than any place else on Earth. But you didn't need a telescope. It was just hanging there. It was gorgeous. The blue tail is correct, by the way. And this current comet also has a blue tail. That light is produced by a slightly different process, and you're getting many more colors mixed that cause the tail that streams away directly from the comet's head to look blue. So this green part of it is a sort of a fan tail that's much closer to the head of the comet.
Now I'm going to ask a question that will make people glaze over when you respond, I suspect. But we're going to take a shot anyway. Why would one comet, it seems to be the same basic dynamics, the same physics, the same chemistry, and I'm sure you're going to tell me that it's not, but still, I mean, again, from a layman's perspective, the two comets, Hale-Bopp and this Green Comet, seem to have the same things, same elements working. Why wouldn't they both have the same color tail?
They actually do have very similar properties, and part of the difference has to do with the geometry of how we see them, and also just how active the comet is. Most comets, if you could sort of get a bird's eye view way above the solar system and watch the thing instead of from the Earth, you'd see, they're all pretty much the same, except some are a little bigger than others, and some come a little closer to the sun and they get a little more active. But they're kind of similar, and they all have some of this green light, and they all have that blue light, and they have a few other things that are common too. But our post of observing them from the Earth depends then on not us only, but also where the sun is. And that has an effect on how this thing looks. So that's part of why it's different.
This is interesting, and then I will let you go. You're so generous. We're talking to Dr. Ed Krupp from Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, and he's just he's a trailblazer when it comes to bringing science to all of us. Copper says, how can there be color on the comet in the darkness of space? No light equals no color, right? Is that right? I didn't know that.
No, I'm afraid I don't want to be unkind to people writing in. But there's light in space, and that light has color. Now, the fact is, the human eye only sees certain parts of that color, and it also has difficulty with certain levels of brightness in the color that you see. When light goes down in intensity, the parts of our eyes that detect black and white take over. And so very often it's hard to detect a lot of color when you're looking. And then, of course, where there isn't material that's glowing, then the writer is absolutely correct. If there's no material glowing, there's no light, there's no color. But there's a lot of stuff in space, and a lot of it's glowing.
Also, as the light comes into our atmosphere and it's filtered through that, don't we see the light spectrum in a different way?
Well, certainly for a bright object, our own eyes can easily see it, and everybody can experience that. In the setting or the rising sun is visible. It looks very red, depending on the dust in the atmosphere and whatnot. So, yeah, a lot of the color that we see from the bright objects, moon as well, are affected by our atmosphere.
If there are no other questions, Kim, excuse me, I'm going to excuse the witness because I did promise him I'd get him out of here in about 7 minutes. But do you have anything, or is there anything in the chat that you
it's
felt?
so interesting. I'm so glad you were able to come on with us. I know we can't see this one with the naked eye, but a lot of people like me have a child really, really interested in space and in astronomy. So we're going to try to go see this one. Thank you for the information today.
It's always worth the look. Thanks an awful lot. Glad to see you all.
I love that things like this start conversations like this and get kids and people interested in science again. Because as you suggested, Dr. Krupp, the fact that we can predict these comets and we know their path, that should speak very well to the geometry, the mathematics, some of the absolutes when it comes to science and the scientific community and the scientific methods. So anyway, love you, Ed Krupp. Thank you.
I wonder if he noticed my light up moon. You think so?
Oh yeah, we should have.
Yeah, I should have showed it to him. That's all right.
Now would be the time to hit the stinger, Albert.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So thank you everybody in the chat room who is rallying around the comet and the photospectrometry. What is that? Photospectrometry. Oh yeah, I guess that's where you can see the different colors. Thank you,
I dig
Elon
it.
Musk, for ruining astronomy. Exactly, John Watson. I've talked before about people are celebrating, and I don't think anybody in here, but maybe celebrate Elon Musk for various things. Certainly, he popularized the electric car and accelerated that course for the electric car in ways that you probably wouldn't have seen it accelerated had he not been running Tesla. After that, I got a lot of problems with Elon Musk. You know how I feel about Neuralink and the unmitigated cruelty associated with what he's doing with animals there. But this isn't about that. This is about this whole mission to Mars thing, where he's going to load people onto, various space capsules and take everybody to Mars because this planet is uninhabitable. It's a ridiculous plan. It's a ridiculous plan on so many different levels that it's hard to know where to criticize it or to shed light on it. But I'll just pick one that's related to science. The radiation alone in the travel to Mars would make it just prohibitive. I mean, it just is from everything I've read, there are just a lot of elements associated with travel to the planet. I'm leaving aside, how do you get these Amtrak trains full of people, up there? And of course, what people would go, the billionaires who would try to, set up a Starbucks on Mars and a kind of world where they can have a meta spa when they land. I mean, I'm just saying it's absurd. It's ridiculous. And it's a waste of money and time. If he spent that time and money to conserve here, to help us undestroy this planet, it would be so better spent, that money and that time. So that's my rant on, it wasn't really rant, but it was, my little.
Your Elon Musk feelings?
I'm a little down today because of the announcement. Now, Albert, this is not a major announcement. Typically, Kim, as you know, we do major announcements. Typically, they're announcements that have to do with the show or with one of us.
Yeah.
This is not. So, Albert, would you consider the Brady thing is not a major announcement, is it?
Well, any excuse to use any of our elements. Let me hit the major announcement.
All right, it is a major announcement in the sense that
a major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
Tom Brady, who is the second most handsome guy in football, next to Jimmy G, of course. He retired, last year. Then he unretired 2 months later. Now he is re-retiring, and here is his major announcement.
Good morning, guys. I'll get to the point right away. I'm retiring for good. I know the process was a pretty big deal last time, so when I woke up this morning, I figured I'd just press record and let you guys know first. So I won't be long-winded. You only get one super emotional retirement essay, and I used mine up last year. So really thank you guys so much, to every single one of you, for supporting me, my family, my friends, my teammates, my competitors. I could go on forever. There's too many. Thank you guys for allowing me to live my absolute dream. I wouldn't change a thing. Love you all.
That's sweet. That's sweet.
He did get a little emotional there.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's a big deal, Pretty amazing that he's 45 years old and he's been able to keep this career going. That's that's amazing. It really is.
He has a 10-year, $375 million contract waiting for him at Fox. If he retires for real this time, he's going to cash in as a sports analyst.
Oh, that's just great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
He was given that last season too while he was retired. And then he said, wait, Fox, put that on hold. I want to make my return real quick.
Yeah.
And then
hang on. Hold my beer.
Yeah.
I've got an interception to throw. No, he actually played fairly well. I mean, he is borderline statue back there, right? He doesn't have a lot of mobility, but boy, he sees the field so well, and he's good for the game. The game needs personalities. All sports need personalities. That's what you need. You need the bad boys. You need the controversies. That's what. So Brady was great for the game. At 45, the fact that he could lace up, tape up, and get out there and just jog to midfield, it's hard. It really is. Apparently, he had a discipline about his workout regimen. He was, I think, mostly vegan, and he had this rigorous kind of program, exercise, gym work, diet, and it just didn't stop. And that was year round. Now he's free of that wife.
Free of
I'm kidding.
Free of the hot supermodel. Yeah.
He dumped the hot supermodel for the hot Instagram babe or whatever. I mean,
but that doesn't mean that it's a good thing.
It feels like a pretty good thing. Albert, I do have a second major announcement, if I can please be.
A major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
Albert made me think of it just a moment ago. It's true. Dr. Phil is going off the air.
It's the saddest thing.
What? I know you'll need Yes, I know you'll need a minute.
Are you
Dr. Phil?
This is a man with anger. This is a man that has resentment towards you.
Yeah.
Are you more emotional about the retirement of Tom Brady or Dr. Phil?
Oh, that's a really good question. Mm-hmm. That's a good YouTube question, Albert. Are we more broken up? Are we more emotional? I like the way Kim put it about the retirement of Brady or Dr. Phil going off the air. 21 seasons Dr. Phil was on the air. Dr. Phil McGraw. He launched in 2002. The show was co-created by Oprah Winfrey. He started as a segment on Oprah Winfrey, as you're aware, and it went well. This is how Dr. Oz started. Usually, and this is a good thing for all trying to get into mainstream television, syndicated television, some kind of thing, maybe even some kind of program like this, which is just sort of more homegrown, or even a radio show or whatever. Typically, you start as a segment on somebody else's show. That goes well. They expand that segment. Then you can approach people, or you are yourself approached about doing more and expanding your segment into your own show. That's probably Kim's plan here, to be perfectly honest.
No, I'm happy to be taken along for the ride. I just like to hang out with you.
It is more work to do your own thing, but I wouldn't resent anybody for trying to do their own thing.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
Exactly. After what did I say? 21 years, 21 seasons. Yeah,
been a long time.
That's the third major exit from the top syndicated ranks in just as many years. The last 3 years have seen Judge Judy. I was more affected by Judge Judy going off. She was really one of the top performing syndicated shows. So she went off the air. Can you think of other ones? Ellen went off the air. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now, and then
my bad. I'm sorry.
Dr. Oz and then Dr. Phil. It's the end of an era, people.
Dr. Phil used to be taken more seriously, and kind of over time his show and his advice became more of, I don't want to say he became a joke, but he became more of almost like a meme, and less, at the very beginning he would come on and teach people how to handle kids and actually dispense some useful advice, and toward the latter part it kind of became like a Maury Povich thing, where they invite the crazy family on and let's kind of exploit them for the entertainment of the viewer. So it was more about poking fun at the crazies and less about offering the help, it seemed.
That is true. I think Kim makes such a good point. Dr. Phil to use the phrase, jump the shark. He started with a guy who seemed to really, as Kim says, have substantive and substantial ways that he could help people. And from a lot of what he did, you could sort of take things for yourself, your own relationships, whatever it might be, life's challenges. But he became a joke. Yeah. I mean, he became, it's fine to go on talk shows. It's fine. That I understand. But that he would show up to like every car accident with it's just, come on, man. I mean, every emotional car accident is what I mean. He would, let's bring Dr. Phil in. It's just so. His son is a piece of work, I guess. Didn't we did a thing on his son's place? He sold his home in Colorado, I think, or maybe it was his dad's place, Colorado or Utah. Maybe it was Utah.
Right.
It's like a ski chalet, kind of weird looking ski chalet. It was very Marilyn Manson-ish looking, Anyway, hey, more power to them. They didn't steal from anybody to get that money and that success and that fame. Good for Dr. Phil in this. The other thing is, at the end of Dr. Phil, he would always go by in the front row. That's his wife there, right? And they would always walk off together. Yeah. I'm cynical, so I was going, really, really, dude, I get it. You got a happy marriage. Okay, you need to put it in our face every day. And he would say, Mark, it seems like there might be something else going on there. Why do you seem so bothered by the fact that I parade
There's never been anything like this.
my happy marriage around to you. Anyway, that's your major announcement from Dr. Phil and from Tom Brady. Two major announcements.
This has been a major.
And now, I want to take a moment and acknowledge Steve Moskowitz, MoskowitzLLP.com. Steve Moskowitz is the Bay Area's tax guy for over 30 years. He can help you with tax preparation, but he can also help you locate government money that you may be entitled to. Of course, we've talked about ERC at length, but that is a real program. And if you were affected by COVID, you're entitled to that money. And if you were affected by COVID, you may not even realize it. That's right. Steve can help you investigate whether or not you might have government money coming. So I would call Steve for any number of reasons. And I've also told you, if you've got a side hustle, if you're building a business on the side, I think Steve's a great call. I think he, as I've mentioned, and we've talked before about this, he can provide a perspective and a strategy and help you lay that down as you begin even something that's just a small little side hustle. From a business standpoint, he can help advise you. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. 888-TAX-DEAL is Steve Moskowitz. Help Steve help you. Give him a call or hit his website, MoskowitzLLP.com. It's Moskowitz, Moskowitz, MoskowitzLLP.com. Steve Moskowitz, thank you for being the exclusive.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And so, I wanted to mention that John Rothmann is going to join us bottom of the hour. There is a lot going on, and I'm going to try to kind of skip around with Rothmann to address some of it. Nikki Haley is entering the presidential race. She of the Trump administration, but she was a governor in South Carolina. And she has a lot of qualities that Americans would spark to and that the GOP might spark to. I think the GOP field is getting a bit more crowded as they see that Donald Trump is weakening. His gravitational pull politically is not what it used to be. Now, the MAGA movement, it will continue and has actually reconstituted itself, I'd suggest, in more dangerous ways, like Ron DeSantis, for example. Ron DeSantis is a slicker version of Trump. And when I say Trump, I'm talking about the policy side of the Trump administration, the cultural wedge issues, the racism. You'll find that in horribly effective ways being played out in the state of Florida and with DeSantis legislation and DeSantis positions and DeSantis rhetoric. With Trump, you get the kind of clown car aspect. his administration and the clownish aspect of who he is, right? Just self-referential. It's all about him all the time. And you realize that the presidency was just one giant grift for the Trump family and for Trump himself. That doesn't mean that Trump does, I made this repeatedly, have his hand on the pulse of, in fact, we talked about this with Debbie K. Johnson yesterday, of popular American thought. So, for example, we talk about Social Security. The Republicans are stupid enough to, in no small number now, talk about those things associated with Social Security and Medicare as entitlement programs that should be on the chopping block. That's just a stupid conversation to have. First of all, it won't happen. Secondly, who do you win over except a base that is radical right? Trump was smart enough to come out and say, I don't think we should touch Social Security. All of a sudden, you only have to say that, and you distinguish yourself enormously in a positive way from the rest of the GOP field. So
I wonder if Trump is seeing the Nikki Haley thing, thinking how disloyal she is. You know, that's his first thing. Like, if you're not loyal to him, like, you're nothing. So I'm sure he's pissed.
Yeah. Bad audio, is that right? Is it bad audio from me? Are you having trouble with my audio, guys?
You're breaking up a touch, but we can still understand you.
No, I really wish you guys would mention that as opposed to having to read about it in the chat.
It just started happening.
Okay. Let me plug this back in. Yeah, I don't know what to. Sorry.
How about I do some news? And
if it gets really bad, that sounds good. Okay.
No,
thanks for hitting the like button. Thanks for supporting us. What's that, Albert?
You sound good. It was just like a network thing. So, but you're stable now. You're good.
Okay. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. All right. We'll do shout outs. We'll bring on Rothmann. We'll do a lot of shows still to come. Thank you for being here. Smash the like button like a boss, and we appreciate you.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
I appreciate you. You appreciate me. There's so much appreciation. All right. Mark Thompson Show. Here's Kim's News.
So much love. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Well, I know we've been talking about it, but let's start with Mr. Brady, because he has announced his retirement from football again. Take two. His ex-wife, Gisele Bündchen, are they divorced yet? His estranged wife? They're confirming on her Instagram by saying, wishing you only wonderful things in this new chapter of your life. Brady finishes his career with 7 Super Bowl titles. He leads the league with the most passing yards and passing touchdowns of all time. He played 19 seasons with the New England Patriots, won 6 Super Bowl titles before signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2020 season, and Brady would win the Super Bowl that same season with the Bucs. Brady does have a 10-year, $375 million contract sitting there waiting for him at Fox if he retires for real this time. More than 2,000 U.S. flights have been canceled because of an ice storm today. Ice storm warnings remain in effect in the South. On top of that, at least 1,800 flights have been delayed. Dallas-Fort Worth International seeing the worst of it, with 75% of its flights canceled already. House Republicans are holding a hearing on the issues at the U.S.-Mexico border. There's the tent city at the border. So Sheriff Mark Daniels of Cochise County, Arizona, testified before the House Judiciary Committee and said border communities are being neglected by the federal government. Judge Ricardo Samaniego of El Paso County, Texas, fired back, arguing there is no invasion of migrants in his border community, calling it a false racist narrative. Credit card companies may soon have some new limitations on how much they can charge for late fees. The Biden administration has proposed capping credit card late fees at $8. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau said this change would reduce late fees by as much as $9 billion overall. There's a Texas company has some pretty big plans. you could say, to bring back the dodo bird. What are they thinking? Austin-based Colossal Biosciences intends to use gene editing technology to revive the extinct flightless bird, which disappeared, if I can say that word, more than 350 years ago because of human destruction of its habitat. The company has similar plans for the woolly mammoth and the Tasmanian tiger.
Oh my God! It's one thing to try to preserve a species, but they're going to try to bring back the woolly mammoth.
They're going to bring it back from extinction, and they're starting with the dodo bird. This report, sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, call Steve Moskowitz. He's a good guy. 888-TAX-DEAL or MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
And greetings all. Welcome. It's so great to have you with us. We are live from Washington, D.C. That's why it's a bit of more of a kind of a guerrilla forecast setup than I would have liked. Normally I have the studio. It's all set up, but my father is ailing right now, so I'm back here with him and back and forth to the hospital with family members, and it's all, not the greatest, but he loved that we did this show and loves that we do this show. And so I do this to honor him also. And, when it comes to politics, and it's a weird thing because this is my dining room, the dining room where I was hanging out with my dad 6 weeks ago. I came back here to see him before Christmas, and my mom, my dad, and myself were sitting here talking about politics. We're talking about a number of things. We did a lot of politics. This is Washington, D.C., so you can imagine like your life is sort of steeped in that world. And he was fine. And now it's just remarkable how life changes so quickly. COVID got him, just to speak specifically as to what happened. Fully vaxxed and everything, COVID got him bad. So, but I mentioned politics, and the guy who I love to hear opine on politics, and also because, my friends, he speaks with a, if I can say, a Shakespearean actor's acumen. And if I could underscore this for you in this moment, I'd like to say that this is of the greatest importance. Please put it together for John Rothmann, everyone. Come on.
Hi.
Good to be with you. And Mark, please give your father my warmest good wishes. Everybody should know that your father's book on impeachment remains a classic, and I was honored to have him on my show during the height of the impeachment mania.
Yeah, it was a great thing to hear him with you. He's a great guy to kick stuff around with, but so are you. And I can start with the flashiest thing, and that's what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to get into. We can kind of skim along and hit stuff here and there, and of course, speak out whatever you'd like, John Rothmann. But by the way, smash the like button for John Rothmann. I want to ask you about the addition of Nikki Haley to the GOP race for president.
No surprise. She just wrote another book. She's been promoting it. The interesting thing is that she called Donald Trump before her announcement, and Donald Trump gave her a green light and said, if you want to run, welcome. Although there's no doubt that he views her as a bit of a traitor. You've no doubt heard the clip where she says, I wouldn't run against him under any circumstances, which just goes to show you love war and politics. All bets are off. Will she be a formidable candidate? Two-term governor of South Carolina, ambassador to the United Nations, very successful rhetorically as ambassador to the United Nations. She does have a following. I can't tell you whether or not she will achieve much, but I can tell you this. She is firmly on the right of the Republican Party. She clearly opposes a woman's right to choose. She's big on the whole thing about critical race theory, all of those things. Actually, Ron DeSantis, who is a serious candidate and who I think would be absolutely a horrible face for the Republican Party, she would be sort of DeSantis light. And if he were the nominee, it might be interesting to see a ticket that included DeSantis and Nikki Haley. And if you ask, aren't they too close together regionally? Just remember Clinton and Gore.
Let me ask you though, just when you say DeSantis light, what makes her? Why do you throw the light in? You don't think she's quite as heavy-handed on some of these things?
Exactly. Precisely. You hit the nail on the head.
Okay. So as that continues to percolate, you have the House now run by, it would seem, Kevin McCarthy is hostage to the more radical voices in the GOP. This debt ceiling, which is oftentimes used as a big game of chicken to get various concessions. I reminded everybody yesterday that we're talking about approving a debt ceiling and increasing a debt ceiling for money that's already been spent. It's already been approved. So this idea somehow that you're arguing about this, I think this is a messaging loss on the part, in this case, of the Democrats in the White House. Hey guys, you already spent this money. If you want to reduce spending for the future, you do it. You're in charge of the House now. You're in charge of appropriations. Great, do it. But this money's already spent. So let's raise the limit so we can pay the debt.
Listen, you're actually right on the money. It's very interesting because essentially what the Democrats are saying to the Republicans is, give us your budget. That's what Joe Biden is saying to McCarthy. Give us your budget. Let's take a look. McCarthy keeps talking about cutting fat. It just doesn't fly, and we'll soon find that out. You'll notice how quickly the Republicans retreated from the position that they might want to cut Social Security and Medicare. No surprise there, because anybody who touches that, it's big trouble. So what McCarthy's struggle is, and this goes to the whole Santos business, is that he only has a 4-vote majority in the House of Representatives. He's got to hold everything together. He is not doing very well at that at this moment, and you're going to see it all blow up over this question of raising the debt ceiling.
Smash the like button for John Rothmann, the sexy fool, joins us on Wednesday, and we love it
with your iron rod.
Damn straight. Now, John, I want to
know, how's my hair?
You look great, baby. You are so handsome. I want to ask you about something. Now I want to get into the international geopolitics. In Ukraine, it strikes me that things are problematic from new perspectives, and here's what I mean. And I'm curious your take, obviously. So we're sending tanks. There was tremendous pressure on the Germans to send tanks, and finally they relented, they now say that they are going to send them. So there's a new bunch of armaments being sent, but a new kind of armaments, and now you're seeing Ukraine asking for, but being turned down on. They really were rebuffed in their request for air support, to actually have aircraft supplied by the West. Do you see this as an escalating situation? I wonder if you can.
Of course, it's escalating. And the real issue here is the question of the nuclear issue, because both Medvedev and Putin yesterday in an interview indicated that the nuclear option is not off the table. Why do you think the Europeans are so concerned? I just talked with a very good friend of mine in Germany. He called me yesterday. We had a long talk, and he said, we're very worried about the instability in Russia, and we're very concerned about this talk of a nuclear war. And I have to tell you, that is the issue. And here's the question for Joe Biden, who has done a magnificent job of pulling together NATO. By the way, not just because he did a great job, but because people of NATO are afraid of Russia. So those motivations, now the question becomes, how far will NATO, how far will the United States go? And the normal question is, what will the United States do? One thing I can guarantee you, the United States will do nothing without all of our NATO allies with us, meaning there will have to be that. And if you listened last night on CNN, they did an hour-long interview with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, who has been very interesting in his relationship to all of this. He was asked, would you be a mediator? Because he has the trust of Putin and of Zelensky. And the answer is, if the circumstances were right. He said, I have my plate full here, but yes. But the problem is there's nothing to mediate. That's the issue. And so it's going to be a very tough time. One other quick point. It is not the winter, which is now in its depth, that I'm worried about. It's the spring. Will there be a spring offensive? And what does that spring offensive bring? And what will it mean?
John, do you think we should begin to look at Ukraine as a sort of Afghanistan, as we shovel tons of money, armaments, and a kind of continue this protracted confrontation, even though, yes, it is escalating in all the ways that you detailed so well, I thought just a moment ago. And we're flirting with some of those really, the specter of nuclear war is a serious one that I thought you also are so right to touch on. But I guess what I'm asking you is, without some kind of mediation, that's what made me think of it when you referenced that, without some kind of willingness to sit down, aren't we looking at a protracted conflict? How long could it go on? What's your sense of all of that?
Okay, Ukraine is not Afghanistan. Afghanistan was not a real country. There was no real army. We were propping them up with everything. We were pouring billions of dollars in. Those of us who have been commenting on it for a long time said, this is a paper tiger. It will all collapse if we pull out. And I believe that then, and obviously that's what happened. Ukraine is very different. The Ukrainian people are fighting on their own territory. They've won many victories in terms of battlefield, but also in terms of international politics. Zelensky has become a living symbol. Whether you agree with everything Zelensky does, remember, he has a very corrupt government. We've just heard about resignations and firings and involved with internal politics, which most Americans and Europeans have very little knowledge of. But it's a big difference between what happened in Afghanistan and what happened and what is happening now in Ukraine. So I see the difference. How long will we support Ukraine? Let me be blunt. As long as our allies feel threatened, and I speak particularly of the Western Europeans, but also Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Hungary, if they feel threatened, we are going to be right there, because that's what we have to do.
You know, John, and you're such a great student of history, you're so aware of the fact that wars and battles are fought over only one thing effectively, and that's territory. If you can capture territory through military means, you're able to maintain it through military means. After that, you can't bomb people into some political philosophy or religious philosophy or all the rest. It's thought then that, and I know this is really the conversation in Russia from those who are trying to prevail upon the West, to, don't you have to understand, we're not trying to take over this territory to make it Russian. We're trying to take back this territory essentially to have a sort of Belarus kind of setup. We want a Russian, we're worried about the West taking over this territory from the standpoint of its closeness to NATO and ultimately being absorbed by NATO, even though NATO turned down Ukraine. I wonder if you can speak to what Russia wants to get out of it, because they're essentially laying waste to this country.
Okay, first of all, Mark, Vladimir Putin is the issue. Putin is the one who provoked the war. Putin is the one who is provoking all of this. And if Putin vanished tomorrow, the question would be, what would Russia do? The real issue is someone who was a student of the Soviet Union and studied in Russia. I was there during those days. I can tell you I understood or could analyze how the Politburo of the old Soviet Union worked. I have no idea who would succeed Vladimir Putin if Vladimir Putin were for some reason to lose power. The instability there is critical. But if Putin were to go one way or the other, the whole nature of the conflict would change. In the meantime, we have to be concerned about territory. And what the Europeans and the Latvians and Estonians and Lithuanians are concerned about is that Russia will extend the war into their territory. They were part of the Soviet Union. They understand the brutality of that way of doing things. So that, to me, is the real issue. And what we have to do now is give the Ukrainians everything they need. You know what Winston Churchill said? Give us the tools, we'll finish the job. And I think that is the Ukrainian attitude. Give us the tools. The nuclear thing, which I mentioned and which you kindly referred to as well, is the critical issue. There is a nuclear power plant. It is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. If it becomes disabled, or if somehow nuclear weapons were used, the whole nature of the conflict would change. You'll notice the atomic scientists who do the nuclear clock have now moved the hands of that clock up to near midnight.
Tick, tick,
They
tick.
understand. Exactly. They understand the instability of Vladimir Putin. When everything hinges on one person's personality, when there is not a team in place, the whole thing changes.
Did you have anything for? I feel like I'm dominating things, Kim. You're allowed to throw in with Brother Rothmann as well.
Well, because you're sitting there in Washington D.C. and I don't know how far you are from the Capitol, but I just wanted to talk about a story I saw yesterday, Mr. Rothmann, regarding the Congress and a 200-year-old promise that we would have someone from a Native American tribe sit in the House, and that has never happened, but it might now.
Well, there's precedent for it. Take a look at Guam. They have a representative in Congress who is non-voting. The District of Columbia has such a figure in the United States Senate who doesn't vote, but is theoretically the representative. It's possible. I wouldn't hold my breath if I were you. Remember that First Nation people are not unified. That is to say, there are many tribes, many people who would have to have representation. It's a whole different bag of beans. But to be blunt with you, if we can do it for Guam, why can't we do it for our own indigenous people?
Yet, letting down our own indigenous people and going back on our word is pretty much, that's USA number one, isn't it, John? That's what we do. It
certainly is. I did a course on broken treaties, America's broken treaties, and Native Americans are right there. Although you understand that's part of the problem with the world. One of the best classes I ever taught was one on broken treaties in the 20th century. Just go back and take a look at all the treaties that have been violated by people all over the world, and you read the rhetoric that went along with it, and it makes you wonder why sign any document at all.
I'm sick that I missed that class. I would have loved it. You should teach it again, and I will join via Zoom or whatever other virtual way. I think that's a great class. It sounds fascinating.
Maybe we can do a broken treaty segment here on the Mark Thompson Show. A different treaty every week.
Well, I've mentioned, one of the if you want to see it.
May I just point out, this is the 50th year plus a couple of months of the signing of the so-called peace with honor agreement with the Vietnamese. And you'll notice how long that lasted. I only point that out because it is an anniversary which was not marked this year. But in January of 1973, exactly 50 years ago, a number of things happened. One of them was the peace with honor, which was neither peace nor honor. The other was the death of Lyndon B. Johnson. I mean, there are many things, and I always think of this historically in that context. I just thought I'd point it out because when you talk about Afghanistan, remember, many of us said the same thing about Vietnam. As soon as we pulled the plug on Vietnam, we knew everything was going to implode, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, John, you don't think we should have stayed in Vietnam?
I certainly don't. And I certainly think the interesting thing is, as many of you are aware, had certain policies been followed, we would have been out of Vietnam much sooner than we were. If Harry Truman had lived, he was planning to meet with Ho Chi Minh. And imagine how different the world would have been.
Right. And, just because we're on Vietnam, let me just run it out. The Vietnam, as you look at, you can listen to recordings and you can read chapter and verse and take John Rothmann classes on Vietnam and see how the American government knew, the president knew that this was an awful quagmire, and they remained in Vietnam for political reasons, and the Vietnam War continued for all the reasons that had nothing to do with anything virtuous and righteous. And it cost tens of thousands of lives.
And there's a fascinating recording. You can Google it as soon as Mark Thompson's program is finished. You can Google the discussion between Richard Russell and Lyndon Johnson in 1965. And Johnson said to Senator Russell, who was one of his mentors, "I can't win and I can't get out. What should I do?" And that was in 1965.
And, that's why the Afghanistan papers, this is instructive. This isn't just a history class. This is instructive to today. The Afghanistan papers detailed how the essentially same dance was being done by different administrations around Afghanistan, with not as great a loss of life, but with all of this money going over there. And then, of course, Iraq, where there was loss of life, tremendous loss of life on the Iraqi side, loss of life on our side as well. And all this money going out, and also a destabilizing effort in the Middle East. It was it's one horror show after another, and these dances are all so similar. You know, it's as though we forget our history.
I agree. No question about it. I wanted to say a word, if I can, because a funeral is taking place now, I believe, in this tragic killing, and that's all you can call it, police violence.
Yeah.
But I want to point out that the Vice President, Kamala Harris, is representing the United States there, and I know you wanted to raise this as well. Vice presidents traditionally go to funerals. They've been doing it for years. That's one of the functions of the vice presidency. We will see the impact in terms of all of that, but I will tell you that Fox, which I listen to, as you know, I suffer from low blood pressure, so when I need a little stimulation, they've been blasting Kamala Harris every minute, every day. And so I received an email asking me, what did I think the future of Kamala Harris is? If Joe Biden is nominated for another term, she will be his running mate. If he chooses not to run, she will stand as a candidate. If she succeeds to the presidency under any circumstance before 2024, she will be nominated by the Democrats and be the incumbent. And let me remind everybody that when Truman took over, nobody really knew who Truman was on April 12, 1945. They used to say to err is Truman. So he had a very low acceptance rate. Kamala Harris, were she to be president, would be a commanding figure in so many ways. So I would not rule her out, nor do I think she is diminished. There's no way for a vice president to be successful. Really and truly, I could do a comedy routine about vice presidents. You know the story, Mark and Kim, of the mother who had two sons. They both went to sea. One went to sea and the other became vice president, and neither one was ever heard from again. That to me, John Nance Garner, one of my favorite vice presidents, once said the vice presidency isn't worth a bucket of warm, well, I've got to clean it up here. Spit, they said, but it was piss.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you of course you make the right points about the vice presidency and about essentially you get dumped into all these situations that are intractable. I mean, to send Kamala Harris to the southern border or to the Central America, to deal with, these are problems that have been plaguing this country for decades, and all of a sudden you dump them on the desk of Kamala Harris. And that's
Joe Biden, having been vice president, should have known better. I used to write a column for the Quail Quarterly. That was the publication about Dan Quayle. And all I can tell you is when you think back and you reflect on Quayle, who was a creditable member of the U.S. Senate, became vice president, became a national joke. We used to say that the thought of Dan Quayle as vice president, we would quail at the thought.
Well, it's funny because I'm in my mom's house, so let me mom and dad's house. During the time, so one of the things about being in Washington is that I went to school with a lot of people who are very high profile. They're kids, okay? And my mom, who's an educator, she taught a lot of those kids, okay? So during the Dan Quayle time that you're talking about, she would call me and she'd go, Mark, I just feel the press is being so unkind. I have the little Quayle children in my class, and they're just so unkind, Mark. Is there anything you can do? It was so sweet, because she sees the human side of this family, John Rothmann, I don't know that I agree with you on Kamala Harris. I think that she doesn't have, I get, you've made the point so effectively. So I'll say this, and I'll also just accede to what you're suggesting. She doesn't have national heft. She has national problems. I think she has some, and maybe, as you said, the flames of her problems have been fanned by Fox News Channel. But that said, and right-wing media, that said, it didn't even feel as though when she was standing on that stage with all those other Democratic candidates, when she was in the primaries, that she had national heft that did her much good. It's hard for me to see her actually making a successful run for the presidency. Now,
Mark,
you also had interesting narratives by which she could end up president. That's a different deal.
Mark,
I thought that's a really cool thought that honestly I didn't even think of,
Do you remember a national news magazine with George Bush on the cover, and the title was The Wimp Factor.
Right.
When you're in the White House, when you're in that position, theoretically, you rise to the occasion. And more than that, you get a break. When you're vice president, you don't get a break. You're the vice president. And I always think of the wimp factor. And I always think, by the way, of Joe Biden. Remember when he ran for president for the third time and stood on that debate stage with Barack Obama? He was a joke. He didn't achieve. But in the end, he became president. And whatever you think of Joe Biden, his record as president has been quite remarkable and really something. So who knows? Time will tell. And Mark, you and I will still be here talking about it, I hope.
I sure hope so, pal. So great. Ladies and gentlemen, smash the like button for a guy who joins us on Wednesdays now pretty regularly.
Smash it
And it's
with
so
your iron rod.
great to see that sexy beast that is John Rothmann. John, we love you. Thank you. John Rothmann, everybody.
Thank you, Kim, who did a great job in your absence. Kim,
Yeah, she's great.
Thank you.
Kim is awesome.
So nice to me.
All right. We're over the limit on compliments. So, Albert, we will pick up with special acknowledgments of all of you who have stepped up to support the show. We're crowd-funded. You're the crowd. We appreciate the funds. We will acknowledge all of you on the other side of the hour. There's a full hour to come as we continue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Kim's News next.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Another one of President Biden's homes is being searched by the FBI as part of the investigation into classified documents. Biden's personal lawyer confirming the news, calling it a planned search that does have the president's full support and cooperation. This comes after classified documents were found in Biden's Wilmington residence and a think tank office in Washington, D.C. And as John Rothmann mentioned moments ago, Tyree Nichols' funeral will be held in Memphis later today after being delayed by weather. That according to a tweet from the law firm of the family attorney, Ben Krupp. Reverend Al Sharpton will eulogize Nichols during the service at Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church. The last state trial connected to the killing of George Floyd is nearing an end now. Attorneys filed closing arguments yesterday in a stipulated facts trial for former Minneapolis police officer Tu Tao. Tao opted to forego a jury trial and let a judge decide his guilt or innocence on a charge of aiding and abetting a second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. Here in the Bay Area, there is a child recovering from a mountain lion attack. This happened in San Mateo County. Child went to the hospital last night with puncture wounds and is expected to survive. A neighbor says the boy was in the back of a home where a parent was working. While the attack is shocking, many admit they're not surprised that animal was in the area. The sheriff's office says it's saddened by the news. They sent warm wishes to the boy and thoughts to the family. In Vallejo, there is a girl that is suffering from gunshot wounds. Now extra security being added to Vallejo High School. That is where a 15-year-old girl was hit by a stray bullet yesterday afternoon, right after class let out. Police say she was walking nearby and she got caught in the crossfire as shots were fired between two cars. The interim police chief in Vallejo calls it senseless and unacceptable and is pleading for witnesses to come forward. The girl suffered a serious injury, but she is expected to make a full recovery. And here's one for you. This is one of these stories where you're like, I don't even know what I would do. Where do you begin? You call Grubhub? I don't know. So this situation happened in Michigan, where a dad figured out pretty quickly that his son had gone on a late night spending spree. The kid used his dad's phone to order nearly $1,000 worth of shrimp, chicken, sandwiches, ice cream, and more on Saturday. $1,000 at Grubhub. Yeah.
How old is the kid?
6 years old.
Wow.
After he went to bed, his dad got a fraud alert for about $439 spent on pizza. So yeah, $1,000 on shrimp, chicken sandwiches, and ice cream. and then another $439 for pizza. So yeah, somebody's busted. No more cell phone
Wow.
for you, pal. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
This
We got
report.
to keep things under wraps in this country. All these 6-year-olds are creating problems. Last 6-year-old shot his teacher. This 6-year-old, orders up on Grubhub, whatever it is, thousands of dollars worth of food.
Yeah.
And my God, who knew these 6-year-olds could be so destructive?
There's never been anything like this.
Exactly.
You would have to pay for it because especially if the company made all that food and delivered it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
you're
yeah, if
stuck.
it was delivered, there's no excuse. Yeah.
I guess you're having a party to get rid of that food. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses. If you need help with your taxes, give Steve a call at 888-TAX-DEAL. You can reach him on the web. It's moskowitzllp.com. And I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Calling me a liar? Now what you calling me?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody better weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Woo! I love it. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, everybody. Welcome, Hour 2, Mark Thompson Show. Great to have you here. I'm Mark. This is Washington, D.C., the home of my mom and dad. Dad's not doing so hot, so I came back from California to be with him. It's really been a great opportunity to be with him and to also be with family. This is a very tough time. He's 92. My mom and dad are both 92. So, I'm worried about my mom as well. So it's important to have everybody kind of all hands on deck. My sister is here, both sisters, and my brother is in touch and doing his own thing. He's got some illness in his family, so he's unable to make the trip. It's a little, these things, life has to sort of be balanced. But that's why we're doing the show in a kind of a guerrilla fashion. I've got this Volodymyr Zelensky kind of camera that I take with me. You know how we used to do like the early days of the Ukraine war? He would be from different bunkers joining the world with different messages. I feel as though this is not bunker-esque. But
remember the beginning of the war when they were trying to kill him, and so he was hiding in different spots?
That's what I mean. But he kept showing up with these, with a camera shot and better lighting and wardrobe than I ever. Actually, he did have the kind of a 3-day growth going. Yeah, as I recall.
It's crazy though that he's lasted this long. They haven't found him. If they really are, trying to go after him, he's doing pretty well as far as staying ahead of him.
Yes, I agree. In the early going, Kim is so right. You had this sense that this guy, what, a week, 10 days, and he's going to be out.
I thought his days were numbered.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm impressed.
Because the Russians have laid waste to that country. It is a brutal, brutal thing that's happened there. I hope this war winds down, that there is a resolution of some sort. We talked a lot about it with Rothmann. I'm not going to get into it now. But what I was going to say is, when it does happen, it will take a kind of Marshall Plan sort of collective work on the part of the world to build back Ukraine. It is infrastructure. The society has been crushed under the fist of war. So
I have a question for you.
Yeah, so Kim McAllister, please, in the front row.
So if you wanted to stop by the White House and say hello to President Biden, how long would it take you to get there from where you are?
The White House is probably 20 minutes.
By car or
Yeah.
walking? Yeah.
No, by car. Yeah. I would take the park down into let me tell you,
Okay.
you know, in the old days, you could drive right up to the White House. There was just a black fence there, and a bunch of people would take pictures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then these suicide bombers became more prevalent, and they started putting up these various barriers, those huge barriers, concrete barriers, and now you really can't get as close to the White House. It sort of sucks. All the things and institutions that are really owned by the people or supposed to reflect the voice of the people, they're really much harder to get to and to be around. And there was a quality of Washington when I was growing up, and I think I just took it for granted that you could sort of reach out and touch those institutions of government. Now, that doesn't speak to how they weren't still being run by the most powerful and wealthiest people and lobbies in the world. But I'd suggest that at least there was the sense that these various institutions were more accessible. That might be the word to use. So, yeah. So the White House is probably 20 minutes. Yeah. You know, Washington traffic is really crappy. And it started, and there's still aspects of this. It's just a smaller town, you know, like when you drive around Los Angeles or San Francisco, there is, in the city, I'd say that you can just get around more quickly. Maybe that's not true. I'll tell you, here's where I noticed this. I noticed it. Let me just, there's so many speed bumps and one-lane roads around Washington, D.C. There's so many cops. There are more cops in Washington, and they're not all Metro cops. Police cops, there are embassy cops, there are Capitol Hill police officers, there's Secret Service everywhere. Because remember, there are embassies everywhere. Okay,
Yeah.
It is astounding how many police officers there are. The only place I've seen a lot of cops like this, and they were on the street, they weren't in cruisers like all these other cops are that I've just mentioned, was Cuba. In Cuba, there are a lot of cops. Well, because in Cuba, everybody's on the state dole, right? And to keep a fascist regime in power, you need to have a lot of cops to keep everybody in line, right? And so they do. They have different levels of cops there as well. But there are tons of cops, and traffic is slow. And so, anyway, 20 minutes to the White House from here. Yeah. I want to quickly acknowledge so many who've supported us. You know, we're crowdfunded this show, and it sucks. When we were on KGO, we would concentrate on doing the show and getting guests and topics of conversation and fun things that we do and a vibe for the show. And that's what we had to worry about, because there were other people worrying about getting sponsorships and getting us monies to support KGO and our show. Now we have to do it all. We have to do everything at attention, and we have to get people to contribute. So in that spirit, if you have contributed whatever you can, it helps keep us here with you. I try to do things like work holidays and work all the time and, set up shop now, even though we're dealing with some stuff personally in a remote way. I try to do that as my commitment to you. And so that's to let you know, hey, I won't let you down. I'll keep this show on the air every way I can. And so thank you, all of you who have stepped up. Albert, do we have is this one you want to acknowledge people? Yes, we do. RJ Dunn, $20. Morning, all.
Shout
Thank
out.
you, RJ. Big shout out for the super
Hey,
sticker.
RJ.
Thank you, RJ. What up, RJ? Yeah. Thank you for that. That really helps. $20. Thank you, RJ. Andreas, let's start a super chat party. That is a super chat.
Ooh,
$20.
it's a wild
Andreas.
idea, but it just might work.
Oh, yeah, it's a party, baby. You know.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Let's kick off Black History Month with some super stickers, is all I'm trying to say. Thank you. Andreas, here is a Greek rod.
Smash it with your iron rod.
We'll take it, Andreas.
Not only will we
Bring
take
it
it,
on.
I think I like it more than the iron rod. Thank you for that. All right, for the $20, Andreas, thank you. Mwah, appreciate that. Walter, what up, Walter? Hey, Walter, aloha. Kid. Thank you for $9.99, Walter.
so much.
Thank you so much, Walter. I
Mahalo.
don't need to tell you how nice it is to see you, and thank you for that contribution. Stan Pollock, CPA. Hope your dad will be okay. Thank you, Stan.
Big shout out.
Big
Thank
shout
you so
out
much.
to Stan. Big Dan Ashley shout out. Thank you,
for
Stan.
the nice thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. Candace Worth, $9.99 super sticker. Love it, Candace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Candace. Thank you. $9.99. Thank you. Luis John Rothman, the Jimmy G of intellectual political discourse, equaling beautiful. He is a sexy fool, that John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Luis, for the $9.99. I assure you, it will be used in the most positive ways. Kathy Crowell, $5 super sticker. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, thank
How
you,
cool.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Very, very cool. Andreas Kim, you were dead on with Dead Phil.
What?
$20. Was the Dead Phil related to Phil McGraw?
I think so. I don't think I called him dead. But yeah, I'm gonna go with that, Andreas.
Kim was not a big Dr. Phil fan. I
don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
Here's what I guess happened. That he wrote Dr. Phil and it corrected to Dead Phil is what I'm guessing. But it might be, maybe not. Anyway. John, if we are intellectually honest, we cannot discount how close NATO is to Russia. And we are NATO. Kennedy did not accept the Russians in Cuba. Andreas, for $20 with that super chat, I love that you made that point.
Thank you.
But I not only want to acknowledge your super chat comment, but I want to acknowledge and respond to that thoughtful take. And we haven't heard a lot of this take. Here is that take and I feel as though it is with merit. Andreas is saying, if you are Russia, you see around you the expansion of NATO and the post-World War II building of a NATO alliance that essentially, and again, this is the argument, encircled and expanded around Russia in such a way that Putin and the Politburo became haunted by the notion of an expanding NATO and a threatened Russia. Okay. Now you may say, yeah, Mark, well, that's what they say. But let's face it. Ukraine wasn't a part of NATO. They wanted to be part of NATO, but they weren't. Yeah, but they were sidling up to the West. And the argument goes that NATO expansionism, and again, this is from a Russian perspective, a Russian government, Putin-esque perspective, if you want to put it that way. The NATO expansion seemed real and charged with trying to represent the interests of Russia. They saw Ukraine teetering and increasingly teetering toward the West and NATO as a problem. And it became issue one for Putin. Should it have been? Reasonable minds can differ. But when Andreas made a point, it's a reasonable point to make. So that's why he talks about Kennedy not accepting the Russians in Cuba, so close to the US. That's the way Putin saw this NATO expansionism. He sees NATO on the doorstep of Russia through Ukraine, massive country that NATO was clearly, I say clearly, as I suggest, there was clearly a NATO connection to Ukraine, even though Ukraine was not formally a NATO nation. I think it's a reasonable point to be made, Andreas, and I'm glad you made it. Look, I understand we are normally talking about, and what we are normally hearing in the West is that there is an imperative to protect Ukraine. You heard it from John Rothmann. What happens? We can't let Ukraine fall. Isn't there a humanitarian imperative? These are all things that can be true, but when you talk about the trigger for the war, the argument that there was a strong NATO presence at the doorstep of Russia cannot be ignored. I'll just put it that way. Russia is not allowing SALT inspections, cause of great concerns, and potential changes to our nuclear posture. Agreed. I think our relationship with Russia right now is, when it comes to SALT inspections, when it comes to UN relationships with Russia, Russia has become essentially isolationist. Russia's looking for friends any place Russia can get them. That's why they've got what, Iran, possibly Turkey. When you talk about Russian sanctions, one of the effective ways they've evaded economic sanctions is through countries like Turkey. I thought I had that story slated, Albert.
No, we need to stay on task. You're not done saying thank you yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, thank you for that point.
Thank you
Pamela
so
Stevens,
much.
Thank you so much, Pamela. I did not mean to lose all the super sticker for $9.99. Pamela, thank you. Pamela Stevens, I appreciate your support. The British thank you has a certain regal quality to it, doesn't it? Gail Guthrie, 1999. What up, Gail? Thank you, Gail Guthrie. Thank you. Give you the Chappelle. Thank you.
Big shout out.
Big shout out, Gail. Big Dan Ashley shout out to you. And to DiTiero. What up, DiTiero?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for $20. $19.99 super sticker.
Thank you.
I haven't seen DiTiero's name before, so I'm very excited to have, and I'm probably blowing the name, but I hope it's somewhat close. Jim Slayton, party on, Andreas. Party on, Wayne. $9.99. It's a super sticker, super chat party.
Thank you so
on the
much.
Thompson Show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jim Slayton, regular viewer. Wore the Mark Thompson beanie as we watched the Niners sadly succumb to the fates. The coldest cut of all. Injury. Anyway. Thank you, Jim Slayton.
Thank you.
That's it. We made it through.
Oh my gosh, that was terrific. Thank you, Albert. Thank you for everything. Albert, actually, today, Kim, we live out loud now. Like, yeah. There's no backroom conversation I have with Albert or we're going to do this. We talk about it with the audience too.
Yeah.
So, Albert, are you comfortable with me sharing the fact that the plan for today?
Oh, that I'm leaving early.
Yeah. Yes, that Albert is leaving early. Because he had, Albert's got other stuff to do. He's got in this case, I think it's a dental appointment or something. But
yeah.
Anyway, so Albert's leaving early.
Life goes on.
So the drama that will play out is that at the end of the show, there are a lot of moving parts at the end of the show. We try to make it look, like they're not. But so Kim, are you prepared to handle?
This is a surprise. I can do it. I can make it happen.
Okay. So what will happen is. Yeah. If all you need to do is throw to the to the scrolling of all the people who are on Patreon and also are on PayPal. Okay.
I'll do it.
Those people are all those names are at the end of the show. That's all you have to do. I can roll the, farewell music and all that stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm glad we got that worked out. Now, no, in the old days, like at KGO, like during a commercial, we'd work this out, right?
Sure.
I'd say we could talk, but now we don't have that. So we're always, one of us is always on the air. So there's no real way to do it. I had another.
We have one more. Can I do it one more? Because we got one more.
Hell yeah, let's do it. Jackie Walker, big shout out.
Thank you.
And a
big shout out.
Thank you. Yeah, Dan Ashley, shout out. We need Dan Ashley on. I think we're doing in story nationally. And this will seem like tokenism, but it is Black History Month. We do need Spencer Christian. He grew up in the Jim Crow South.
Yeah.
Spencer Christian has stories of growing up with the ultimate in segregation. And I'd love to at least have him stuff through. So
you're digitally bugging out a little bit here and there, just to let you know. I know you get mad when we don't tell you, but yeah, it's not so bad. It's not bad enough to freak out over, but you know.
Okay. Damn it.
Oh, God, and one more, Sandra Thomas for $10 as well. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra. I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you, darling. Thank you, darling.
I can hear you.
Kim, if you'd be so kind. You know, I actually noticed listening yesterday. When I listened back, I noticed that of course, you sound so great because you've got the mic there. I forgot which is just a classic Mark Thompson move. And I brought all the rest of the rig. I forgot the mic. So when you speak, it actually sounds better, just the quality of the, of the audio.
Indeed.
Now with my signal breaking up, it may sound even better. So you may want to pick up the mantle as best you can.
Okay.
Yeah, Dan Ashley and Spencer Christian will join this month. So that's still to come. The 2 missing monkeys at the Dallas Zoo, they were found, right, Kim?
Oh, so good. Yeah, except for they were found in a weird place. Would you like to expound on that, or are you frozen in time?
Oh, no, I thought you were going to expound. We were found in a weird place. I was waiting. That was a great pause, and then I'm thinking, I'm thinking, I've lost my signal. She's not going to tell me.
No. Okay, so yes, they get a tip that these monkeys are in an abandoned house in the Dallas area. So they go to the suburb and they go into this house and they find these 2 monkeys locked in a closet. And I mean, I don't know what would have happened if no one had found them, but they find these monkeys in this closet in this abandoned home and they take them to safety. So I guess you could say all's well that ends well, but who takes a couple of monkeys and then takes them to a house and locks them in a closet? I can't even imagine what would motivate that type of thing. So
it's
monkey's
horrifying.
Safe. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just review the Dallas Zoo, which has a good reputation. As I've suggested, they don't deserve it, but they have it. They've had multiple fences cut, multiple habitats. I use that word. I mean, these are controlled habitats within the zoo, breached, and they've had multiple animals jacked out of there, one of which has died that I know of. I don't know what the numbers are, but the monkeys were returned. Are there any other? They had birds that were taken out too. One of the birds was killed. I don't know
They
how
had
many others
a
were recovered.
vulture that was killed. They also some wire fencing was cut, allowing some other animals to escape their enclosures at the zoo, but all have been found, and I think everybody else is okay.
Valerie 923 on Twitter saying, enjoying Wednesday's show on my television after a minor ear procedure to insert a tube in my right ear. Oh no. It's popular with young kids, but this senior was having issues. So nice to chillax with the Mark Thompson show on the big screen, recuperating.
Cool. Rest up with that ear. Yeah.
Yeah. Get that ear working soon. Yeah.
Big shout out.
Big shout out is right. There is also, I wanted to, I thought I had some news on just what you were talking about, which was, I'm looking at Twitter now.
Are you talking about the monkeys?
Yeah.
Can I show you a picture of the monkeys?
There they are.
This is the tamarin monkey. They have that mustache on their face. That's what they're known for, that like the little white handlebar mustache. So they're kind of cute little guys.
Well, they're cute, and I think they're not in the best shape worldwide in terms of their numbers.
Are they dwindling?
Not cool to yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, what would possess someone to lock a monkey in a closet? 2 of them.
It's kind of just basic, mayhem creators, chaos creators. This is just sort of like vandals, maybe you want to call it, if you want to think of it that way. I think that's I thought it interesting, and you may You may find this striking. This is news from the world of academics in California. Albert, if you would please, a stinger.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, I've just realized that I've got to do a Kim's News.
That's all right. Whatever. I'll play it
No,
by air.
not whatever. I've got to.
If you call for it, it's coming. If you don't, it's not. That's
I've
the
just.
way we
I
roll.
haven't. I'm not watching the clock. All the things that I'm used to having, all the elements right in front of me, I don't have.
It's all right.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll break for
I've done
Kim's
enough
News,
today.
and then when I come back, I want to talk about the move that is real, that colleges are considering overhauling the grading system for freshmen to ease them into the college experience. They may get rid of grades completely. It's a
what?
Something that's happening. Yeah, it's happening in California. It's
What
a
kind
story out of
kangaroo
Santa
college
Cruz.
is that? What is happening?
It's a story out of Santa Cruz, and I'll share
It's
it
a
next.
wild idea, but it just might work.
And they're replacing the college grades with dings. They're gonna, anytime somebody does something well, they're gonna hit them with a ding, which is a nice thing. Yeah, and everyone they use a larger. Yeah, they're gonna go to the ding system. It was inspired by our show. We're very excited by that. Yeah, so
it's
you know,
ridiculous.
those at the top of the class are the ones with the most dings at the end of the semester. Yeah. Kim's News, and we continue next, and I'll tell you about that grading system. Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. So we'll start it out with the interest rates going up yet again. The Federal Reserve hiked rates by a 0.25 percentage point. The central bank has been aggressively raising interest rates over the last year. That, of course, in a bid to get inflation completely under control.
And the reason this is an absolute mistake is because inflation is coming under control. You heard David K. Johnston tell us about it yesterday. You've seen pieces in the Wall Street Journal. I'm happy to review it for you when Kim's News wraps up. But the reality is that the economy is coming back in line, and that the Fed is now, they are over clamping down on this economy, and this is how you can risk recession. I based on everything I've read, it's as though they're ignoring all of the good news, and they are still operating on news from 6 months ago when it comes to inflation. But nonetheless, I mean, they control the rates, and it's a 0.25%.
It is a 0.25 percentage point, indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, all right. Thanks, Kim.
So
Sorry,
we have that to look forward to. Tyree Nichols being laid to rest. His funeral underway now in Tennessee. The funeral is taking place at Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church in Memphis. Vice President Kamala Harris is in attendance. Reverend Al Sharpton delivering the eulogy. The family attorney Ben Krupp will give a call to action there as well. And as we've been talking about, Tom Brady stepping back once again. He now is possibly just 5 years away from being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Can we say that? Or is that too premature? I mean, I think it's a given, right? That he will be.
Oh my God, they call him the greatest of all time, right?
Yeah. So the Hall tweeted Brady.
That'd be great, though. We think the greatest of all time, but we're not sure about Hall of Fame.
The Hall tweeted Brady would be eligible for induction in 2028. The announcement coming after Brady revealed he'll be retiring from the NFL. What about coming to the 49ers, buddy? Come on. Leave us high and dry with all the quarterbacks injured. I don't like that. President Biden's attorney says, no documents. No documents with classified markings were found at the president's home in Rehoboth Beach. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Rehoboth Beach, Delaware.
Rehoboth. We used to vacation there all the time. Imagine.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he's got a house there in Rehoboth, and there are no documents at that house. So good news. The FBI searched the residence this morning, but you know, the fact that there was even a question, I don't know. They looked there this morning as part of an ongoing classified documents investigation. The president's personal lawyer said it was a planned search. The president had given full support, full cooperation as they were looking for more documents, because Lord knows where all these documents are going to turn up next time. I don't know. Here's something, something for you, Mark, that I think you'll be interested to know. You're not the only guy who, over time, over history, has liked hanging out in a bar, because now we know that there was the oldest pub discovered. Archaeologists in Iraq say they have found an ancient pub dating back to 2700 BCE. CNN reports researchers in Lagash found the tavern 19 inches below the surface. It was split into an open-air space and room with seating, an oven, and ancient food remains there. It even had a 5,000-year-old makeshift refrigerator. So they were living it up at bars and pubs way back when.
Yeah, they knew how to make a drink back then, Kim. That's right.
Yeah, to make a cocktail in Lagash, you know? This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve also knows how to make a cocktail. He's been putting his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, it's Steve Moskowitz. You've got to call 888-TAX-DEAL. He's also at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Everything is going extremely well. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
I apologize to every preacher and pastor.
What he's got going here is a situation.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
No, no, no.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Woohoo! Yeah, right
there
on.
He is.
Yeah, you know it, kids. I love that little run. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Yes, I am remote, so I know the signal is a little in and out. We're on my mom and dad's Wi-Fi. Yeah, it's a dream come true. I really hope that the apex of my career would be on my mom and dad's Wi-Fi someday. So this is it. You're seeing it. Smash the like button like a boss. Keeping the show on the air. Thank you for the thumbs up. I think we've done some good stuff today, actually. You started
Smashed it with your iron rod.
with the comet and Dr. Ed Krupp, who is a superstar in the world of astronomy. That was a great booking, and we're so happy to have him. That was right out of the chute. Then we got John Rothmann. We touched on Kamala Harris's viability, Ukraine situation, the GOP, the debt ceiling, all of that. And we've updated the monkey situation, Tom Brady, a lot of stuff in the show today. We'll get to the Santa Cruz thing, but you saw what George Santos is now doing. The everybody's favorite congressman, George Santos, Republican from New York, announcing yesterday, after we got off the air, this was breaking news, that he is temporarily stepping down from his 2 congressional committees because of ethics issues, it's suggested. And he's faced numerous calls, as you know, for his resignation. Prosecutors are actually looking at his campaign finances and lies about his resume and family background. So he really has the full menu. It's like the Cheesecake Factory menu of issues. And good for him for stepping back a little bit. And he was signed to a couple of fairly low-profile panels, the Small Business House Committee and the House Committee on the Science, Space, and Technology, right? He wants to step back from those. So I think what's happening is with Santos, tell me if you agree, is he is being hounded by the media now. The exposure, and by the way, I'll remind you, and we pointed this out on this show, that in his district, it was known that he had likely falsified parts of his history and parts of his resume. It was talked about and reported by the local paper. But because, and this is what I, again, had mentioned to you before, generally these small congressional races don't get media attention. So you can pretty much get away with saying whatever you want. And national media doesn't pick it up because it's not click-worthy. It doesn't bring eyeballs. People don't care about some congressional district in New York where the guy running has lied about his resume. I mean, you're going to find that on nightly news? No, it's what's that going to bump out of the way?
The voters care. I mean, and also he should care. You don't go around lying about things like that. That reflects on you personally.
Okay. I'm laughing because, I mean, of course you're right, but that's just, and that it's a naive position. I mean, there's more lying. I'm in Washington, D.C. This is the apex of lies. You're jumping over lies on your way to correct other lies in this town.
But imagine, like, if you told a lie like that and you were caught. I don't know about you. I'd be mortified. So embarrassed. He should be hiding in shame right now. And instead, he's parading around Washington, D.C., probably marching through the patio right behind you, waving and saying, oh, yeah, I'm George Santos. And nope, I'm not leaving unless, the voters ask for me to go. No.
It always depends on the kind of lie, if you actually really want to get into the lie. But of course, you're right. I think about what's his name? We said he was hiking the Allegheny Trail when he was actually in South America with his girlfriend, who he was playing around with on his wife. Google it and you can find it. And he was going to step down for some of the reasons that you suggested. It was humiliating, right?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, he leaned back in. That's a great story in itself. And if you Google it and read about it, you'll see how they circled the wagons around him, for particularly the religious right, and they were able to build a wall of support around him. And the reason that was important is because of power. And so this gets to Kim's, I think, to her general comment. And what I would say is that power and winning is the whole game in Washington. Who cares that you said, we can't vote on a Supreme Court seat and confirm someone in the last year of a term, but then with a month left in the next term, when it's your guy, you do vote. There's a lie right there. I mean, you see what I'm saying?
I would call that hypocrisy, not lying.
Well, okay, call it what you want.
My guy,
I call it lying. I call it lying. In other words, he said we would never do this. I would never do this. And if I do it, you can play this tape back to me and hold me to account.
Right.
And then he did do it. So in other words, he was lying. You can call it hypocrisy also. Yeah, of course. But it's a lie. What I'm trying to say is that this is a town that was built on power and lies and misrepresentation and making up your own facts. And more than ever, I'd say, that carries the day. So,
I think you're right, sadly.
How's my signal?
Pretty good. I think it was McCarthy. I think McCarthy has pressure on this guy, and I think he asked him to step down temporarily while the ethics investigation is ongoing. That's not based in any fact. That's just kind of reading between the lines of all the stories I've read about what's happening.
Mortified is a ding word. Congratulations, Kim, on getting a ding. Tom, as you know, is our unofficial keeper of the ding.
I'll take it.
If there was as I've said to you, an umpire chair where the ding master was.
Is a ding word. I think mortified's kind of pedestrian. I'll take it though. I'll take a ding where I can get a ding, people.
I think mortified is legit ding word. I agree with
All
him
right.
on that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking for the ding. I don't really do this stuff, and Albert is just there you
There you
go.
go.
But the reality is that Santos, I'm suggesting, is now so hounded by media that he just wants to draw back into his office and, wait it out. And by the way, the media will move on. I know this seems like a front and center story, but the media will move on.
I feel like he should be under his desk, red-faced, and stay there in a corner, shivering, hoping that someone takes him back to New York where he can go back to his life, and the
Yeah, but
spotlight will be off of him.
he is too valuable to the GOP. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a key seat. He won that seat, however he won it, and that's what my point is. That winning is everything. The ends justifying the means. The first step on the road to obtaining a coveted Bachelor of Science degree can be laden with potholes and supersized classes, difficult material, and rigorous grading.
Yeah,
They say
called
in Santa
college.
Cruz. Yeah, it's called college.
It's why you tell your kids, you think this is hard, wait till you get to college, right?
Quote, "You're like a student ID number," said UC Santa Cruz student Sylvain Vicarino Ruiz, recalling his Psych 100 course. Quote, "They packed over 100 students into that class, and I just remember feeling, how am I supposed to learn these things, or have my ideas even being considered?" So they call these weed out classes or gatekeeper classes, where they essentially have all of these students. They make the class rigorous enough in terms of its demands that kids get shaken out. And what they're saying now is they want to change that. This is happening in Santa Cruz, okay? But it might be a trend elsewhere. You're trying to move things from the focus being a score to the focus being a learning, said a biology teacher who is the assistant faculty director at UCSC's Center for Innovations in Teaching and Learning.
Oh,
So,
Lord.
yep. That now they're in recent years, world-class universities from MIT to Johns Hopkins to Brown have been experimenting with various ways to reduce the stress of the first year of college and make the grading system fairer for students who didn't graduate from prestigious high schools. That experiment got a big boost last March in this report that was written by the University of California Office of the President. The report says that traditional grading practices, quote, may perpetuate bias and inequities against economically disadvantaged students and those who are the first in their families to attend college. So UC Santa Cruz, I know we have a lot of Santa Cruz viewers. Apparently, they say that's the perfect sized institution to road test this theory. And for that reason, they are looking at the pros and cons of ungrading, which is what this was called, because it's UC Santa Cruz has always had a counterculture system associated with it. And so this kind of experiment might do very well there.
So what is it going to be, like a pass-fail instead of grades?
So they talk about either I'm looking at historically the grades. The average male got a C in their first year, and they're looking at
well, that makes sense.
Yeah, but what they're
sorry, boys.
No, I know. No, but they want to have evaluations instead of grades is what they're looking at. Okay. And then the emphasis will be on grades in the upper classes, meaning if you take an advanced psych class, you've taken an advanced chemistry class, that's when there'll be more of an emphasis on grades. So
they're gonna
sophomore,
ease you into
junior year,
college.
into it. Exactly. What's going to be more important will be how students perform in upper level science courses, said the senior director at the Association of American Medical Colleges. He served on several medical school admissions committees, so he's a good person to listen to. Advocates of ungrading say if it's done right, it'll shift the focus back to learning and away from grades in a way that helps students adjust to the rigor of college, regardless of their educational background. Anyway, that's happening at UC Santa Cruz. Good luck. Hey, man, college was a bitch. I remember, it was a bitch.
it makes those first-year parties a little bit more exciting because no one has to worry about it. Like, yeah, don't worry about going to class tomorrow. Just have another beer. John Watson writes, UC Santa Cruz didn't even have grades back in the 80s. I chose to go to UC Davis instead because of that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The
Joe writes,
90s. Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
let's make college even more meaningless. Great idea.
Yeah, there was an option of getting letter grades in 1997. And I'm talking about UC Santa Cruz, okay? And the faculty voted overwhelmingly to make letter grades mandatory for all undergraduates in at least 3/4 of their classes. That was in 1997. So there's been at UC Santa Cruz always this kind of appetite for experimenting in this area. And now this is their latest.
JR says, one of the few U.S. schools where surfing is an elective. And W.H. King says, what a bunch of babies. A human biology class I took at San Francisco State had 800 students.
It's true. I mean, those college classes that are immense, not necessarily that unusual. And they're hard, you know. We all want a little personal attention, right? So, I mean, anyway, that's what's going on at UC Santa Cruz. So.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I hate when people confuse education with intelligence. And it says,
sorry,
Mackay. You can have a degree and still be an idiot.
That's true.
That's true. That's way true. UC Santa Cruz initially had evaluations and not letter grades. Right, there you go, Laura. I think they've really occupied the full spectrum of different things when it comes to the way they evaluate grading. So, a concealed gun carry permit approved in San Francisco thanks to the Supreme Court. This out of the Chronicle. I'm not keen on the San Francisco concealed gun situation. It's a rare concealed gun permit that went all the way to the Supreme Court. It was for the first time since a landmark U.S. Supreme Court ruling last year, the San Francisco Sheriff's Office approved a resident's application to carry a concealed weapon. We did approve our first concealed carry permit, said Tara Moriarty, a spokesperson for the Sheriff's Office.
She's awesome, by the way, and a friend.
The guy who got the application and the approval is a guy who's an automobile body shop attendant in the Tenderloin. The Supreme Court in June ruled that states with strict gun laws could not force residents to show a special need for self-defense in order to obtain permits allowing hidden firearms.
Mm-hmm.
Big shift in many jurisdictions in California, including San Francisco. I mean, as you know, you haven't been able to get a concealed carry permit in San Francisco.
Never. Never. It was unheard of.
Yeah.
And now this is with being the first one. That's interesting. And I mean, I guess we're going to have people all over San Francisco packing. You won't know who's who, you know?
That's right. This is interesting.
I suppose one could make the argument that they already do. There already are people packing all over San Francisco.
Well, that's what people say. Other people are packing. Why can't I carry? I mean, I'm having to deal with any number of people who are packing. But I was going to ask you a question to go out on. I think it's sort of interesting. It's maybe a guessable number. And it is this. In 2014, this is the last time I have a figure for it. In 2014, how many people had those concealed permits, the license, concealed, they call them CCWs. What does that stand for? Concealed
carry?
Concealed carry, thank you.
Yeah.
Concealed carry permits. How many in 2014 in all of San Francisco had those concealed carry permits? Any guesses in the chat?
So you have off-duty police officers. I would imagine they let cops have it, right?
Oh, but they'd already have it. I'm talking about Well, let me just tell you exactly what I'm
And
talking about.
federal police, don't you have to have a concealed carry permit if you're off duty? I don't know how that works.
No. I mean, I mean citizen civilians who have it. I'm not talking about
Okay.
law enforcement. I'm talking about people who applied and had it approved.
I'm
Okay.
gonna okay, I won't. Oh, yeah.
No,
I, I
you can guess. You can
I'll
guess.
say 10. I'll say 10.
What do they say in the chat?
Huge in Japan says 5.
Mhm.
William Lundgren says 47.
Hmm.
I'm corrected. Someone says cops don't need a license. John Slade has 15. I think that's probably pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
So
The actual retail price is accurately guessed on the nose by Kim McAllister. 10
really? Oh,
is the answer. That's exactly right.
I didn't look
Yeah.
it up. I promise.
Yeah. It's pretty big.
I'm not gonna cry.
I'm not going to cry, but I am going to give you credit. Yes.
I mean, I would have gone higher if you had told me police needed one when they're off duty. But if they don't
Right.
need one, then
Yeah.
it has to
Yeah.
be like, maybe a judge who's under threat or something like that. It has
Yeah.
to be very, rare cases. But now not anymore. Now they're just
No,
going to
that's right.
pass them out like candy.
Apparently, I mean, the Supreme Court has made it more possible. You had to pass a background check and go through a psychological evaluation in the old days, as well as complete a firearm safety qualification training course before getting the permit. The interview with this guy Zhang, who got the permit in the Tenderloin, that's the one that went to the Supreme Court. He's the one who works for the auto. He says the growth in open drug use and dealing in the Tenderloin was in recent years prompted him to request this permit and to ultimately appeal it and to get it approved.
Yeah.
So
he's probably around a lot of crime.
Yeah.
Maybe
I mean,
feels like he needs to protect himself. But the question, for me, it's like you're remove yourself from the crime then, because do you really want to have to deal with the aftermath of hurting someone? I wouldn't.
Well, yeah, of course, there's that as well. But I mean, I think in the moment you want a way to defend yourself.
Yeah.
I guess mace and these other things that you might, be able to carry, they aren't sufficient. But anyway, but that's the latest on that. I think it's big news, and I'll just mention one thing as a footnote to that. The effort to get that approved and take it to the Supreme Court, it was backed by a lot of these gun lobby groups, right? I mean, there's a legal fund and legal effort to make your right to carry a gun, and you may feel that you want that right. I understand that many of you may be in that camp. There's an effort to underwrite all those legal opportunities, like this one in San Francisco, to make the point that all Americans everywhere in every city and municipality should have the right to carry a firearm. Again, that is underwritten by these groups, CNRIA, etc. But there are a bunch of other sort of subsidiary or alternate, operations that quack the same way. So,
Walter says, my father would say, if you need a gun on the nightstand where you sleep, you need to move.
That's such a great line. Such a great line. Yeah. Ain't it true?
John says this, at least you're still around to feel bad about it. I had someone break into my house and we had to use a gun to scare them off.
Right. I mean, I think it's increasingly where there are these follow home robberies. You saw what happened at the Pelosi home, and all of a sudden, I don't know if a gun's the answer. I feel as though a dog's the answer, but I wouldn't get a dog if I'm not ready to have a dog in the family and treat the dog like a loving member of the family. Don't get a dog just because it's a thing to help you with security. I mean, that's not the reason to get a dog, and it's also not the way to get a dog. And it's a but a dog is a lovable creature, and that barking will affect a security situation. I'll just say that. So I want to mention Nikki's show. Will you please mention Nikki's show while I get organized?
Got a quarterback problem. We'll talk about that on the Nikki Maduro show starting in just a moment here. Black History Month. We'll talk about that. Mr. Beast philanthropy being criticized now. Ooh, Mr. Beast, really? And then Louis Mirante with the Bay Area Council talking about the housing deadline here in California. And doorbell versus text poll is up. So we'll be taking a quick poll on the Nikki Maduro show, and I will be over there with her. That starts in just a minute, right about now. So
what is a doorbell versus text poll?
I don't know. I'll find out.
Oh, okay. I thought it was something that because that the cool kids are doing. But it's not. Okay. Are there any other acknowledgments, loose ends that I need to tie up for today? Please, Kim, you can tell.
I don't think there are any loose ends. I think we've got it going on. Yeah. It was a great show.
It's good news, and it was a very good show. I mean, I thought given all the contributors were great.
Yeah.
I think you're great.
No, I think you're great.
I think Albert's great. I think I am great, but I'll admit these I'm hobbled a little bit by the technical stuff, but I appreciate so much us all pushing through and all the ways that you support us. Everybody's been very supportive. So
hey, give our love to your dad this afternoon, okay?
I will. I truly will. Also, I'll mention tomorrow, Belinda Weymouth is here. I think there's also another guest we'll do. It's the Planet Stupid. I forget who's the other guest we have tomorrow.
Is it Avila and Sure?
No, that'll be on Friday. Both Jim and Michael will be on Friday. But much to do as we continue here from Washington, D.C.
For the Mark Thompson Show.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Really do appreciate all the support. And jump over to Nikki's show. And until tomorrow, bye-bye.